Look, it's like that old saying goes, if it's too good to be true, it most likely is. And today we're going to be checking out one of the most highly watched videos on YouTube, the primitive building being exposed or staging their videos. No way. Another content creator staging videos. Wow, I've never heard it before. But like always, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to help us reach our goal. Let's get into the video.
Almost every single primitive building channel is underpinned by countless different lies, and we've got tons of evidence to prove it.
Oh, here's the evidence.
Now we need to put an emphasis on the fact that this is most primitive building channels, and certainly not all of them. After sifting through forum post upon forum post about the ways
a couple
in which
that I
these
watch,
primitive
right?
builders lie, in order to generate sometimes up to 500 million views.
Yeah,
per
I've seen
video,
these guys before.
Users continue to mention one name over and over, crediting him as legitimate amongst the sea of phonies: Primitive Technology. The 10.4 million subscriber channel, which is run by an Australian named John Plant, basically invented the primitive construction genre, all the way down to the sound design of...
I thought we kind of knew that, right? Like there is kind of like a level of like, you know, organization there, right? They're setting up cameras, they're setting up angles, they're setting up different like positions to film. I would kind of expect it to be kind of staged. I don't know.
Silence mixed with rainforest noises, with Primitive Technology even stating in a Reddit AMA that originally it was out of laziness in not putting narration in the videos, but then the silent format became popular, so I kept it that way. When going back to the beginning of these silent, relaxing videos, it becomes pretty obvious as to why they're credited as seeming pretty legit in terms of authenticity. Primitive Technology cuts no corners in showing how...
What does that even mean? Like, what did you just say? Like, oh my god. For real though, like, these are relaxing and they're pretty cool to watch, but I just never fell into the idea that these weren't all like,
each stage of the construction is completed legitimately. For example, when examining his very first video, he shows the axe head being sharpened, a log then being cut by the axe, then the logs being crafted together in a way that feels realistic. All of this is accompanied by specific captions explaining what's going on in that very moment, alongside a full description of the build, all the way down to how the construction process took.
By the way, if that was me, like just trying to live out there and survive, I couldn't imagine myself. Dude, I'd freak out. I like panic or something.
His builds never include swimming pools or anything over the top, yet feel impressive as they seem to be on the cutting edge of what is and isn't possible to build by hand. The legitimacy of some of his more impressive builds, such as this brick hut, can be supported by YouTube comments such as this one, which stated, "I actually know John personally. He was a really good friend. We live in the same town, although I haven't seen him since he went."
Here we go, dude. Another person just alleging in the comments they know somebody, they're related to somebody.
Viral. I have fond memories of him telling us that he was building huts out bush and had no idea they were so legit, before going on to credit him as a pretty authentic guy from a personal relationship standpoint. All of this is incredibly important to understand, as Primitive Technology's videos set a baseline for what should and shouldn't be achievable in a natural setting. Additionally, Primitive Technology has been kind enough to provide us with a statement, which will be referred to as one of the channels on the other end of the spectrum, also known as the fakers. The fundamental problem with the genre is that with so much time between cameras...
You know, I'm not even gonna lie, okay? Like, I fell for it, dude. I really thought these guys were like, you know, straight up taking hours and days to make these amazing creations. But yeah, I mean, eventually you kind of just like, you know.
Cuts, there's plenty of time to set things up illegitimately. And with Primitive Technology's very first video receiving over 44,000 Reddit upvotes and 30 million views, it's no surprise that copycats with less integrity began to pop up.
Yo, those are kind of, you know, it's kind of crazy looking at those things and be like, okay, like these guys just kind of made that. We all fell for it.
The slides were longer and the water was suspiciously
a whole water park.
blue.
And it's a weird blue color. Why is it so blue? Probably because they're probably still dying or something. There's no reason for it to look so blue like that.
Even more interestingly, almost all of these channels range from the exact same area, being Cambodia, Thailand, or Vietnam, yet often geotag the United States, claim to be living in the United States, and have their social blade country set to the United States. The overall production and build quality on these channels is arguably far more impressive than the OG Primitive Technology, to the point where you have to ask yourself, are they really creating these structures out of mud and sticks? Well, when you do a little bit of research...
But like, why does it matter though? You know, like, why does it matter if it's just for entertainment purposes? I guess if they're, you know, benefiting out of it financially, say, I guess, but like, if they have backers and stuff. But like, we kind of like all know that they're kind of doing that, right? For example, we watch WWE, right? We all know it's staged. The fact that like the wrestling is real, right? Maybe the storyline is fake, but the wrestling is real. What I'm trying to say is that like, what's the difference between that and this, you know?
Oh, The best evidence for this is found when looking at a 5 million subscriber channel called Primitive Technology Idea, whose failure to cover up the ways in which they fake their videos make them almost comical to watch. Take for example this episode titled Building Underground Water Maze, Crocodile to the Secret Underground House and Swimming Pool, in which the first shot shows two men digging on the surface, then in the next frame they're in an 8-foot deep trench. Now, if they're digging this deep with sticks, how are they avoiding large rocks and potential tree roots from, you know, the massive line of trees seen just behind them? Are they being assisted by large machinery? Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but first let's focus on the idea that it's only two people doing these impressively large primitive construction projects. If that's what they were attempting to portray, it probably would have been best not to include the clip where a guy in a white t-shirt can be seen working on the project.
Yo, that's a massive self-report right there. Like, people are like really like, oh my god, how did someone even catch that?
Background. Yet if it were just these three guys,
you must have been
still
looking
wouldn't
for
be
it.
that bad. However, further evidence suggests that they are far more help than this. At the start of the week, a community post was made on this channel in the hope that someone who had worked with one of these primitive builders would be willing to share their experience in doing so. We received countless emails which were all super helpful, yet one email stood out as being incredibly unique. That email was incredibly from one of the cameramen who works for one of these larger Southeast Asian primitive building channels. His name and the channel he works for
that was a
were both
mouthful.
being blurred out, as it'd be a little unfair for him to get in trouble for simply trying to help out, but the email began by stating, "As you may have suspected, it's not as streamlined as the video would suggest. It is a large operation, as you may suspect, with a large team of us behind it."
My god.
After he then offered to answer any questions we had about their channel, we attempted to figure out how many different people will work on the actual construction.
Yo, what the hell? These guys are like on it. Like, once people get like a seed of something being like untrue, just a massive amounts of people just like trying to figure out like problem solvers.
Been
Like,
part
what
of the
fuck?
project
Like,
from start to finish, to which he would respond, "It is
How
depending
do you
on the
even fall
scale of
into
the
this?
project, but no less than 1 dozen or more," before going on to explain that within his team, there is a director for the acting done. There is also a hired architect to obviously make sure the structure will not collapse and will last long enough to film in, and obviously afterwards many editors are involved. In case an email from someone who works from one of these primitive builders isn't enough evidence, it's time to introduce a different channel called Photo Expression.
I haven't
who
seen that one.
incredibly
I saw the last
stumbled upon
two.
one of these primitive construction sites before capturing over 8 minutes of footage with a drone. We'll refer to different parts of this footage throughout our video, but for now it can answer the question of how many people are really working on these sites. There's initially a clip where 8 different workers can be seen standing around a rectangular hole in the jungle, followed by another grainier clip from a far distance where somewhere between 7 and 10 people can be seen building a swimming pool. If they were honest about how many people were working on each project, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. But it should be noted that some of these videos specifically state in the description that "I've been working hard with my 2 friends about 100 days to completely build," when in reality it's a whole team working for only 3 to 10 days depending on—
Oh, I see. I guess the lie, right, is what's bothering people. That they lied. I guess, you know, but who isn't like lying?
the project, as mentioned in the email response
To
from
benefit.
the cameraman. So if they're being untruthful about the time period as well as how many people are working on each project, what else are they lying about? Well, how about the incredible fire pits?
Oh, okay. So I see what's going on. Now like it opens the floodgates of like, if you could have lied about that, like something so big like this, I'm sure you're gonna lie about every little small little thing. Yeah, it just creates this like weird trust issue, right? And it's kind of like, oh man, these guys are full of shit.
That they seem to create effortlessly. Going back to the statement made to us by Primitive Technology, he seemed to imply that maybe the
Leaves a
fire
bad
making
taste in
their
your mouth,
videos
you know?
was fake. It's hardly surprising that he brought this up, as when you compare his meticulous method of creating fire in the wild to the fire making of these Southeast Asian primitive channels, as mentioned previously, it becomes comical. They slap a couple of rocks together before beginning an explosive fire on large logs with no kindling whatsoever. John went on to state that if they've faked simpler things, then they're most certainly faking more complicated ones, which turns out to be true, as when looking at another video by Primitive Technology Idea, it becomes obvious that not only are these guys faking simple things such as fire, these guys are also faking the most labor-intensive exercise of all, the digging process itself.
Why the hell wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Like, I mean, if they're going as far as like, you know, doing everything they're already doing, like, why wouldn't they? Like, it's just WWE.
This video with over 63 million views.
Just make sure you're in
most
frame.
do. A shirtless guy draws a big circle and begins to dig it out. Only in the next frame, suddenly there's spray paint on the ground that they forgot to rub out. Additionally, on the wall of the hole, these long smooth cuts can be seen which are completely incomparable to the cuts being made by the stick. Well, there's a reason for this. Turns out spray paint marks—
I can't believe I sat
thing that
there
they forgot
and
to
like
rub out,
actually believe
as
these
in the
guys
minutes
did
that
this.
follow, excavated tracks can be seen here, 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 and here. In a different video by the same channel, the same person can be seen working very hard digging out a similar hole, which to their credit contains no excavator tracks around it. One mistake they did make, however, was that they forgot to take the actual excavator out of the top right.
Look at that, dude. Look at these investigators. Hold up, I gotta move my camera. Look at these investigators, dude. Look at this. What? How does someone even see that? Like, you must be looking at frame by frame, especially like on these wide shots. How do you even see that? Like, that's in the corner. Like, wow, man, people are awesome. They're really detectives when it comes to
According
this
to
shit.
the email sent to us by
YouTube
the cameraman
detectives.
on one of these channels, approximately 70% of the digging is completed by machinery, whilst 30% is completed by hand, given how much of the work lies in simply digging. But men still do plenty of digging. As you may guess, in small underground spaces, it is impossible to fit a skid steer loader in the hole. Most of the actual construction is done by a hired team of specialized builders from my understanding, and they work with only intrinsic tools. The dirt is removed by skid steer loaders and offloaded elsewhere, and skid steer loaders are used in the initial boring process, whilst incrementally we film the builders doing superficial works on the hole. The video in which the excavator can be seen in plain sight then goes on to strangely display the collection of concrete from a river, which is...
You know, when people are like filling up sentences with words, they're probably trying to hide something. I feel like, yo, like the amount of words being used to explain that they help them is rowdy.
The exact same clip reused from the previous video. Now, why would they reuse the same clip twice in two different videos? Well, it's because collecting concrete from a river is completely and utterly bogus. Concrete doesn't grow in a river, according to a civil engineer who had commented on one of these videos.
A civil engineer?
This is incredibly fake. Cement requires a precise
What the
combination
hell is a
of different
civil
raw
engineer?
materials and then receives considerable heat treatment in order to make the powder we all know and love / hate. What's even funnier is that every single one of these channels has their own...
Yo, come on, guys. Like, let's not act like we didn't fall for it. Like, we didn't, like, let's not act like we didn't just sit here and watch these people thinking that, oh my god, like, look, they did that in like amount of days. Like, yo, you know what? Fuck it, dude. I was one of those people.
Unique method for creating natural concrete. This channel's concrete is simply a mix of dirt and water, which, if you think about it for 2 seconds, doesn't create concrete and rather creates muddy water or mud,
Bruh,
which is just
I don't
dirt
know,
after
man.
the
What the
water
fuck? I'm
dries.
just...
This other channel gets a little bit more
I'm just a
creative with
viewer.
it by taking a chunk out of a termite nest, grinding it down into powder, mixing it with water, then concreting an entire pool with this small chunk of termite
Yo,
nest.
a dragon
Yet
in
neither of
there?
these compared to
Chill.
the fakest channel of them all, Primitive Technology Life, which decides to just skip the concrete altogether and go with good old rocks and dirt. However, that's not the only suspicious thing about this shot. You'll notice when looking at the bamboo that each branch has a suspiciously clean cut on the end. Compare this to Primitive Technology, the legitimate channel from Australia, who in one video displays what the end of a log should actually look like, and you'll notice pretty quickly that these pieces of bamboo weren't naturally cut on site. These
Damn.
pieces of bamboo weren't
Caught
either,
in
which,
4K.
as displayed in the video, were attached together then used to siphon water from a river to the pool. Only there was no river. Photo Expression found the exact site of this pool, then stated in his video that in reality, the closest water source was more than 6
Oh my
kilometers away.
God.
Instead, he found a bunch of blue plastic piping attached to a tap in the ground. Going back to the email from the cameraman, the water for their channel just comes in cubic containers that is transported there. A very
No
funny part
way.
is any
Are you
scene where you see them
serious?
sourcing water from some magnificent waterfall or
Yo,
lake.
so all this is just fake. Everything is fake, bro. Those people are just not even real, man. They're freaking AI embedded effects. You know, they're special effects.
They're actually going somewhere perhaps hundreds of kilometers away and pretending to take it back. The video in which Photo Expression had stumbled upon various completed primitive builds also showed that after these channels are finished building, the sites are simply left to rot. This video doesn't speak for every Southeast Asian primitive building channel, but in this particular case, rubbish was left everywhere, including, as you might guess, cement bags. The fact that the videos are fake isn't the most concerning, it's the destruction of the land that's concerning. Now, if this was public rainforest, you could probably consider this a pretty big deal, but according to the cameraman's email, at least on their channel, every build is done on privately owned land, which is leased for the purposes of the video. If this is the case, maybe Photo Expression is in the wrong for snooping around and filming on someone else's property. We're kidding, of course, but if the builds are being completed on privately owned land,
it's kind of that old age question of like someone's like planning to murder somebody and you overhear them because you're kind of sneaking around. What's more important, the fact that you were sneaking around or the fact that somebody was gonna get murdered? Like, you know, you kind of weigh the bad over the bad, right?
and it's a little narcissistic
makes
to
any
comment on what
sense.
they should and shouldn't do with it. Primitive Technology, the original legitimate Australian channel, put it best in his email to us when he said, "My advice to people who really want to know if the techniques on display are legitimate is to put them into practice and see. If you can follow the steps and get a similar result, then it's probably legit."
Damn.
He added that these corner cutting channels are motivated by money and status alone, rather than a true interest in primitive technology. But wanting to stay out of internet drama, will leave it up to the discerning viewer to decide what's real and what's
Damn. Talk about exposed, right, guys? Like, oh my god. You know, what primitive technology said is true. I mean, it's just like, you know, put it to the test. You think I'm lying about the things that I'm doing? Then you do it yourself, you know? You're gonna see the difference between them and me. Like, that's true, dude. Like, he's betting on himself, you know? That's amazing. Wow, these guys are an organization, and people just rating and say, oh, let's do this, and we have this private land and all these things, and it's just the whole fabrication. I guess I understand the whole gripe with people, like, you know, if you're lying, at least say you're lying. That way we're not being deceived. People hate being deceived, you know, and especially on the internet with millions of people watching you. Like, people are gonna feel stung by that. People have time these days to like investigate each clip, each frame, and make sure that, you know, you are doing what you are. You know, you're gonna have those people who hold you accountable like that. And you know, for me at least, it's like WWE. You know, like it's staged, but it's still entertainment. You know, like they're still doing it. The illusion to me is like what makes the videos for me. You know, I can't lie. I mean, I sat there too and thought, you know, these people are making concrete out of sand. Like how he said, you should have thought about it for 2 seconds and maybe you wouldn't have fallen for the fairy tale. But sometimes fairy tales are fun to chase, right? You know, that's what I'm saying. And I want to know what you guys are saying. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. And if you enjoyed the video, like always, hit the like button and hit the subscribe to help us reach our goal. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a good one, and peace.